Hi again then guys, and welcome to another car review, of course, from the world of Dirt Rally 2.0, this time a much more modern R5 category car, and this is from a manufacturer who I absolutely love, Skoda, but unfortunately they don't appear in that many games, apart from rallying. And even then, they're not around quite as often as they used to be. I love the chance to talk about Skodas. The Fabia VRS is one of my favourite cars of theirs. Now, my favourite version is, of course, the older one, around 2005. This one, though, is a very good car in its own right. And one of the coolest things I think about the R5 class in general within this game is there's no bad egg. You've got Citroën, Peugeot, Ford, Skoda, of course, Volkswagen, Mitsubishi. They're all really good, but at the same time, they're all very different. They do handle their weight differently. Different engines, different amounts of power, and to me that keeps it very interesting, because usually in a particular motorsport class, there's a clear OP vehicle, and maybe one or two that aren't as good, which almost feel like they shouldn't be there. The Skoda, I would say, is not necessarily on either end of that spectrum. I would say that the Skoda for me is like a 4 out of 5 overall. It's in the higher end, but it's not the absolute best necessarily. I would say that a very good choice, for instance, is the Peugeot, the 208. I prefer the Skoda more so for the brand. So let's put my personal love for the brand to one side, and of course be objective, as I always am. So what's the spec sheet first of all? Well, it weighs 2,700 pounds, the exact same weight as all of the others. The power is 280 horses, which is a little bit higher than some of the other R5s, a little bit lower than some of the others as well. The engine is on the larger end of that spectrum if you're talking exact CC, but they're all about 1.6 or so anyway, so it doesn't matter that much. Of course, front engine, all-wheel drive. So the real question is, in any kind of category where the cars are this close, with no clear runaway winner necessarily, how do you choose which one is right for you? Well, if you're looking for a place to start, I would recommend either this or the aforementioned Peugeot. Go into like a time trial event or like a free race mode in effect, select one of those two cars, give them a try and see what you think, because there are some which are definitely pushed more by the game. The Volkswagen, for instance, the Polo, it features in some of the menu art of the game, but the funny thing is, it's not a runaway winner, and I like that, because usually a car that is pushed more tends to have maybe a little bit of an unfair advantage, as I said, a little bit OP. That's not the case here. Now, the one big thing that you need to watch out for when it comes to this Skoda is actually the tyres. The tyres on this car, at least in my experience, seem to pop quite easily, which is a weirdly specific downside to have, and maybe it's just my experience, but I've driven multiple R5 cars on the same kind of on-road and off-road rally stages. This one just seems, for whatever reason, to be more prone to that. The tyres are definitely weaker, they're also pretty far out there, so it's very easy to catch the curb on this car. Some of the rally cars in R5 and beyond, they're not necessarily all that wide in terms of the body kit. This definitely is, so having the wheels that much further out, of course for stability, means that they're much more susceptible to damage. They are right out there, almost like an open wheel Formula car in some ways, and although everything else about the car is really good, it is a strange Achilles heel for the vehicle to have. And again, that could just be me, but I definitely haven't seen that happen anywhere near as much in the other R5 cars that I've driven on multiple different stages. Now, in a shorter point-to-point event or a weekly community event, something like that, the tyres won't matter as much. So the real place and time in which a disadvantage like that can come into play more is, of course, career mode. When you're in a longer tournament, especially with a higher AI difficulty, you can't really afford to keep stopping and fixing tyres and popping tyres and degrading them, because of course you just end up racking a ton of time onto your existing time and potentially falling down the grid, which is not what you want, of course. So I would say get some practice in with this car. Learn how far you can push it, learn what you can and can't, should and shouldn't do with it without popping those tyres, and even as far as the rest of the handling, just to make sure, as always, that it does suit you. Because, just because something's a good car doesn't mean you'll necessarily like it, or doesn't mean it'll suit your driving style. Some people, for instance, like a car that's very safe. I would say that the Peugeot is a very safe choice. It's very forgiving. It's pretty consistent as well. The Skoda is maybe a little bit more playful, a little bit sharper, slightly less forgiving, but still a very forgiving car. So really just give them a try. To me, I would definitely put this and the Peugeot as my two favourites in the category. The Volkswagen is a little bit bloated feeling to me in some ways. The Mitsubishi I haven't put too much time into, the Ford likewise. The Citroen is an interesting choice as well, and of course we'll talk about more of these other models in their own videos, but for now the Skoda I think is a good choice, but not necessarily a great one. It's a good car, it will win events, but it's got a couple of those smaller things which you should watch out for. Overall though, as I said, certainly a dependable choice. Give it a try, see what you think, and if you are new to the channel, click right here on screen to see my other dirt videos. But for now, as always, thanks for watching.